What's up, everybody? Welcome back to our Week 8 picks. Let's jump into every game here, NFL Week 8. Before we do, all I ask of you is like the video if you're enjoying it, subscribe to the channel to keep getting our NFL content week in and week out, as well as our other picks, Survivor Leagues, etc. And let me know in the comment section who you're taking this week. Getting started with the Thursday night matchup, we got the Vikings after a tough loss at home, going on the road to the Chargers, who dropped yet another game and looked in a really ugly matchup in Week 7 here. All that being said, you get the Chargers favored by 2.5 points here against the Vikings here. 43.5 the total, so pretty average scoring game there. I actually like the Chargers in this matchup here. A lot of it is due to the fact that I'm not a big believer of J.J. McCarthy at quarterback there. I think both these offenses have had their struggles throughout this season and very well might continue to have those, but you get the Chargers having the edge there in terms of defense. You got Chargers playing a top 10 defensive unit in the league, even despite some of the injuries and losses they've had this offseason. And the Vikings defense, really, I think it's the big difference from what they had last year, and the big reason they've got just as many losses as they had last year is this defense is playing below average even with defensive coordinator Brian Flores sticking around with a lot of the same personnel, but it seems like they're not playing up to the same level that you're used to seeing from the Minnesota defense. Outside of that, one of the things that isn't really helping the Vikings is a weaker run defense here, and that's something that the Chargers are really going to want to jump on. Just that's the brand of offense that they play under Harbaugh and Greg Roman, offensive coordinator, rookie Amari Hampton. Behind that offensive line that's starting to get some key guys back like Joe Waltz in a pretty battered offensive line up to this point for the Chargers. But as they start to get healthier and get guys back, I think that's going to be a key success. And I also just love the receiving core for the Chargers. Hard to not shout out the receiving core for Minnesota as well, but I trust Justin Herbert and the guy getting the receivers the ball for the Chargers a little bit more with guys like Keenan Allen, Quinn Johnston, Ladd McConkey, and even the Chargers tight end that really started to pop off this last couple of weeks. They really found a hidden gem here in Gadsden, who's just been put up a 100-yard game last week and getting a lot of looks there and helping round out this offensive passing unit. I think the Chargers are actually both these teams are a little bit overdue for a win, but I like to side with the defense a little bit more in a low-scoring, probably Thursday night matchup where I'm going to take the Chargers and Justin Herbert here, as I think J.J. McCarthy on the road, again, not a huge fan of his just yet, still has got to prove it to me. And because of that, I'm taking the more established quarterback and the more established defense, which I think most weeks in the NFL works out for you. Moving on to another game, we got the Falcons here, coming off, I think, a shocking loss for a lot of people on the road against the 49ers there on Sunday night, taking on the Dolphins that just got beat down against the Browns in that really poor weather game over there in Cleveland. I think you're going to see a lot of the same formula that the Browns utilized against the Dolphins. Similar to the Falcons would take a page out of that book and try to replicate that. I mentioned I love the Browns last week against the Dolphins because they have a really strong run game and the Dolphins have a really weak running defense. That matchup is exploited even more here with the Falcons, who have a better run blocking unit. The Browns have one of the worst offensive lines in football, and they were still able to put up big numbers against this Dolphins defense. The Falcons with one of the better offensive lines here and arguably the best running back in the game with Bijan Robinson are going to look to trounce all over this porous Dolphins run defense. So just because of that fact alone, I really love the Falcons to control the clock, control the ball, and put up a lot of points with their tandem running back, not just Bijan Robinson, but also Tyler Algier. And then quietly, almost really under the radar, the Falcons have put together a very formidable defense this year, which is a different tune than you could sing in the past few years. That certainly helped them, especially with getting a revitalized pass rush, which you haven't seen in a long time, and a secondary too that's just as formidable there. So I'd say nothing profound from this Falcons defense, but certainly above average, which is, again, a big step up for who they've been. And then you look at the Dolphins on that defensive side of the football, and they're boasting the third worst grade defense in the league, really poor Again, run defense, the coverage grade isn't that much better either. You just see a really big mismatch here in a Falcons team whose offensive passing attack is starting to come alive a little bit. You saw that against the Bills, tougher matchup there against the 49ers. But I don't see this Dolphins defense slowing down the Falcons too much, and I predict the Falcons to win this game pretty handily. I would be surprised if they won this something like 28-21 here, and a big win for Atlanta as a bounce-back game after their loss on Sunday night. Brings us to the Bears game on the road against the Ravens coming off a bye. Maybe no worse position in football than to be the Bears here with the Ravens getting Lamar Jackson, their quarterback, back after this bye week and getting healthy. This is a Ravens team that is one win in the season and desperate to get something going. This is the week to do it. Again, after the bye, taking on the 4-2 Bears, a surprising 4-2, but this is a really good spot for them to get back on track. Because I think if you watched that game last week, and if you watched the Bears this season, you know that this is a paper tiger with the Bears being a 4-win team. They even in all these wins they have, it seems like they should have lost these games. Again, the Ravens teams have come out so hungry at 1-5, desperate to salvage their season and fight for the playoffs. Lamar Jackson coming back again after injury, probably going to see a vintage MVP performance against him, against this Bears defense that I will give them credit. They're playing above average football and kind of carrying this team, and really the reason they won against the Saints, not because their offense, which I think people expect to take a big leap this year, but it's no match for this Ravens offense with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson when they're both playing. I expect to see a huge performance in the run game from that duo in tandem in Baltimore. And then I alluded to the Bears offense, which I think has been a little bit lackluster this year, not taking the huge leap up that I think people expected. You're going to have to put up a ton of points against this Ravens team. You can see that over at 50.5 if you're going to want to compete with them. I don't see that happening. I think the Bears come out a little bit sluggish, like I think they have most games this season. Ravens do the exact opposite, knowing that they're playing every game now for their future here at 5 losses. They cannot afford to drop any, certainly not at home, off a bye week against an inferior opponent here. I think you see the Ravens win this one big, putting up at least a 30 burger in this game. I could see even a 41. I'm going to go Ravens 38, Bears 19. Big win for Baltimore here off the bye. Speaking of bye weeks, the Bills come off theirs on the road against Carolina, who's undefeated at home this season. But the Bills dropping 2 straight losses in prime time and had a lot of time this bye week in week 7 to think about it. 7 is the amount of points they're favored, looking to beat the Panthers by an average a touchdown, says the pros in Las Vegas. And I think that's exactly what will happen here. This is a Bills team that cannot afford another loss with the Patriots tightening their heels with their winning ways. Bills started out 4-2. I really don't see Josh Allen and this team dropping 3 in a row against a Panthers defense, which has taken leaps and bounds since last year, putting just slightly below average numbers for total defensive output, which is, believe me, a lot better than they were last year when they were ranked, I think, second to last, if not dead last, and lockstep with that Raiders defense that's really poor. But what's going to be the big advantage for the Bills offense versus the Panthers defense this game is still close to a league worst pass rush unit for the Panthers. If you give Josh Allen time, he's going to pick you apart both with his arms and his legs. The reigning MVP here, I think, is going to have a real easy time tearing apart this Panthers defense by virtue of him having so much time, extending so many plays with his legs, and making these ad hoc off-script plays, either finding guys deep downfield or taking big jump plays with his legs here too. Just not a huge fan of this Panthers offense, although this Bills defense has been, allowing surprising amount of points, i.e. that Falcons game, Patriots game, the last 2 losses they've had. I would expect them to start to shore that up and get a little bit healthier in the bye week. But ultimately, I think it's the offense here again with reigning MVP Josh Allen that you're going to see a really great MVP caliber performance here. I like the Bills, kind of a revenge game, not against the Panthers per se, but against just the league for handling 2 straight losses. Bills get another W here this week, advance to 5-2, and put up a lot of points in that process. I'm going to go the Bills 31, Panthers 24 for the exact 7-point cover here. Some of the worst television on TV right now is Jets football here. as the still and only winless team in the NFL. Jets go on the road to Cincinnati as the Panthers come off a big win in a long week, taking down the Steelers on Thursday Night Football. You're starting to see Jamar Chase starting to prove why he was the number one receiver taken, number one pick taken in most fantasy drafts, is when he's cooking with no matter what quarterback is under center, he's almost near impossible to stop. This Jets defense, almost impossible to not trounce over, as they've been pretty poor all year. And even a little bit thinner now is Sauce Gardner, their all-pro cornerback, limped off the field in that game on Sunday. I'd expect to see the same, but I don't want to overreact too much. I think so week to week, especially with spreads, you see a lot of overreactions. You're looking at a Jets team, again, that doesn't have a win. You're looking at a really good and convincing win from the Bengals there on Thursday night. I think a lot of the expectations are going to be skewed so heavily to the Bengals. I'm going to bring that back to reality, as this is still a Bengals team that's starting Joe Flacco. Maybe caught a little bit of lightning in a bottle against the divisional opponents on prime time, but this is going to be a slog of a game against a Jets opponent that loves to bring people down with them. And they played in plenty of close games this year, played in plenty of blowouts as well. But the key is really going to be stopping Jamar Chase. If they can do that, they're going to have success, because this Bengals team, if you throw out that game against the Steelers, have had a league worst rushing yards per game, just over like 60 yards. Really abysmal numbers. So if you can stop Jamar Chase, this run game, because the offensive line for the Bengals is so poor, is not going, and this offense under an aging, immobile Joe Flacco might struggle. So I'm just trying to bring everyone back to reality here. And remember, don't take 1 week as a trend here for the Bengals. You can certainly take the 7 losses in a row for the Jets as a trend, but it's not often teams lose all 17 games. So keep an eye on the Jets against a weak opponent. Really weak defense for the Bengals, people forget. Really weak offensive line. This is a team with a ton of flaws in Cincinnati. I'm not saying the Jets are going to win because this offense is so bad, but before you look at this line and jump all over the Bengals, think twice about it, because it seems a little bit too good to be true. And for that reason, I'm going to have the Jets cover here. Can't bring it to my heart or mind to take them as the win here, but I think it might be a closer game than people think, just because I don't think this line makes that much sense. So I'm going to go Bengals 24, Jets 20, because that's such a poor Bengals defense. Even the Jets can score 20 points against them. Here's a little bit of an intriguing game. This line is created and picked off of DraftKings before the end of this Monday night game for the Texans, but you got them at home as a 2.5-point favorites against the 49ers. They're coming off a nice win again against that Falcons team on Monday night. And this line, again, another one that made me scratch my head a little bit, because I think most people at home watching football believe the Niners to be the better team at 5-2, having a great record even with Mac Jones, against this Texans team that has 3 losses at this point, probably 4 after the Seahawks game. So it's a little intriguing, again, to see them favored. And I'm trying to scratch my head and pick my brain and try to figure out what can make them be the favorite this game. Obviously, the defense is going to be a big part of it, although you wouldn't know it necessarily by at least the first quarter in the Seahawks game. But you are going up against the 49ers team that relied so heavily on Christian McCaffrey to lead them success against the Falcons. They got a banged-up offense, banged-up defense, really struggling all around to keep their guys healthy and on the field. Going up against the Texans team that right now is number 6 overall in run defense, number 5 overall in total defense. So they're going to make this 49ers offense life really tough, and I'm sure they're going to put a ton of effort into slowing down Christian McCaffrey as much as they can and making Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers beat them any other way besides CMC. Outside of that, Texans have one of the best pass rush in the league, and you have the 49ers outside Trent Williams having not the best run block unit in football, but Trent Williams obviously being one of the best left tackles in the game helps patch up that offensive line a little bit, and George Kittle being back helps them pass and run block a lot better too. But you have an immobile and injured, or hurt but not injured, quarterback in Mac Jones. Might be seeing some Brock Purdy this game depending on how he's trending. But again, this pass rush for the Texans, a really big equalizer in this game. Ultimately, I have not seen enough from this Texans offense that ranks one of the worst in the league in points scored. I just cannot truly imagine them winning this game, and I really do like to kind of zig where people's at. I think the public's going to be all over the 49ers, and I want to be on the Texans this game if they're favored because something's a little fishier. But again, I can't see their offensive production really outpacing the 49ers. Not that I think it's going to be a high-scoring game either, and not that the 49ers have that good of a defense this year, especially with guys like Nick Bosa and Fred Warner out. But I just have seen such little production from this Texans offense. It's hard for me to put faith in them to even put up 20 points a game. I think they're averaging even less than that right now. So gonna have to take the 49ers here in the upside, although I'm reluctant to do so because this line again doesn't seem to make sense. So I'd be a little bit wary of it. But I like the 49ers here to win in a low one, 19-17, San Francisco. Again, the Patriots here looking nice this season at 5-2, and Drake May looking like he might be one of the next young budding quarterbacks in the league. Taking on the Browns after they got their second win this year at the home, beating the Dolphins handily. I think it's going to be a different type of game here where the weather conditions should be a little bit less grimy than it was in Cleveland last week. And you should see a lot more passing than you saw in that game with the Browns. What concerns me in this game is, again, the Browns leaning on their run offense and Quinshon Judkins, who seems to be gaining traction each week against a Patriots run defense that ranks just slightly below average in the league right here. But I think the real story is going to be the difference in offense this game with, the Patriots and Drake May really starting to catch fire. Drake May doing a great job of spreading the ball out to all the different receivers and tight ends on that offense. You started to see Ramondre Stevenson, not the rookie Travion Henderson, Judkins' teammate at Ohio State, started to get this run offense going. And overall, Mike Vrabel's really having that offense click there in New England. But they go up against one of the best defenses in football. I think you could very easily make the argument, and I would make the argument, for the best defense in football in Cleveland, the best run defense in football, the best pass rush in football, top 5 coverage unit. If the Browns had an offense, they certainly could be turning heads this year. And it's that really astounding defense that makes me think the Browns keep this game close, slow down the run game. And you saw when the Patriots have had their struggles this year, when they've had their couple losses this year, it's because they couldn't lean on that run game. Browns take that away against a pretty poor offensive line with the Patriots, and the offensive line for the Browns is pretty abysmal too. But you take that really poor Patriots offensive line that actually ranks worse than the Browns away with the top-ranked run defense. You put it all on Drake May. You've got a great coverage unit for the Browns. I think this game is going to be a little bit closer than you think, and I think there's a reason this total is so low despite how high-flying this Patriots offense has been. So I like the Browns to cover this game, but I do like the Patriots to win because I think you're seeing such great play out of Drake May. But don't be surprised if Dylan Gabriel, who made a couple of surprisingly good throws, even in that climate there on Sunday in Cleveland, we'll see if he can start taking steps before our eyes too. Don't think it's going to be against this Patriots team, but it's certainly possible the Patriots coverage unit posts a bottom 10 score in the league. So they're going to get the opportunities of the Browns to run the ball and pass the ball against this Patriots defense. It's really going to be, can Drake May, this offense, move the ball against this really unmovable force in this Browns defense. Again, I like the Patriots to win, Browns to cover here. I think it's going to be a real tight one. Patriots 20, Browns 17. This is a rematch of a big upset only a couple of weeks ago, I believe, where the Giants a couple of weeks ago hosted Philly and trounced them big time in front of a national audience there. Let me see if I can pull up the score. I think it was like a 20-30 point win. Where Scatterbo and Dart kind of had their coming out party. 17-point win. Giants put up 34 points, holding the Eagles to 17. At home, big difference in this game is now the Eagles get the host. They're getting a little bit more momentum on offense where you see Jalen Hurts start to get A.J. Brown, who's been dormant all year long, really incorporating this offense a little bit more. He's starting to get a lot more separation and really just throw him in contested areas and letting him use his size and strength to make plays. I'm personally not a believer yet in this Giants hype. Yeah, they're a fun team. You got to love Cam Scatterbo. You got to love Jackson Dart and what they're doing right now and having so much fun in New York. But I'm not a believer in this team yet. I think it'd be really easy for Vic Fangio, who's getting some guys back and healthy on his defense, to scheme and stop Cam Scatterbo, who I think only had like 50, 60 yards rushing that game when they played last time. He just was able to have a lot of goal line touches. And then all you got to do is really stop like Wan'Dale Robinson at the wide receiver spot. Again, a very doable task for this Eagles secondary. And then you got to get your guys like Saquon and A.J. Brown going. That's going to be the formula. I have a feeling, again, with this top 5 defensive unit for the Eagles facing a rather poor defense for the Giants, who do have a really good pass rush. I'm going to take the Eagles here with the spread, leaning on the newly found successes in their passing game and betting against the trend of the Giants and Cam Scatterbo and Wan'Dale Robinson. I think Jackson Dart is going to kind of fall back to reality here against a really tough defensive unit, tough defensive front, and tough secondary here for the Eagles. Really well-rounded defense. I think they're going to remind people how and why they're the reigning Super Bowl champs. They're not going to drop 2 games in a single season. The Giants got to take the Eagles to win here. And I think, again, with the passing game, they're going to outlast this Giants team. So I'm actually going to take the Eagles to cover this spread too. I think they're going to put up 27 points this game and hold the Giants to 20. So I guess pushing the spread, but putting up plenty of points themselves to win this game handily. Buccaneers coming off a tough loss against the Lions here on Monday night, taking on the Saints, who looked really abysmal with Spencer Rattler, quarterback, against the Bears on the road. Ultimately, this Saints team is one of the worst in football, and I think they had every opportunity to beat the Bears. The Bears tried to let them creep back in the game with some turnovers of their own, some garbage time points for the Saints, who actually made it close. But even then, still the Bears ended up winning that game and covering. I just think that the Saints team is really poor. I think the Bucs team is really good. I think they got caught in a pretty tough matchup with the Lions, who were reeling after a loss against Kansas City, who wanted to prove their dominance to NFC. The Saints team was only able to put up 14 points against the Bears. They lost the game by 12. I can't imagine. It doesn't always work like this, but I cannot imagine the Bucs will just put up a bunch of points in these guys. Keep committing, enforcing turnovers defensively. The Bucs team is really banged up both offensively and defensively. I won't try to hide that fact at all, but still, I think one takeaway of that loss against the Lions is their defense played really well, forcing turnovers and limiting that Lions offense that had paced the league in terms of scoring points per game as of a couple of weeks ago to a reasonable point total. Offense for the Bucs didn't do the job, but as you get guys like Ibuka, Evans a little bit more healthy, Tez Johnson more integrated in that offense, probably getting Bucky Irving back this game too for the Buccaneers against the Saints team that this defense just wasn't doing anything for them in any regard. Talk about poor pass rush and giving time to Baker Mayfield this game. Saints pass rush dead last in the league, tackling dead last in the league. Run defense outside of Demario Davis holding that unit together at the ageless wonder over there, but the Saints defense again. If you make the Bears look good and you lose the Bears by 12, I can't imagine the Bucs team that's getting healthier, especially on offense, skill position players wise, doesn't trounce them. Baker Mayfield putting on an MVP performance that people are calling for this year. I like the Bucs to bounce back after a primetime loss, take care of their divisional opponents, even on the road, and win this game big again here too. I think Buccaneers 31, Saints 21. This will be a really intriguing game. As the Broncos won one of the most bizarre games that I'd seen in a long time. I think trailing 30 in the fourth quarter and still winning that game. Besides that, it's hard to get a gauge on what this team's true performance is because just the week before they had a really tough time putting up points at all against the Jets team. The Cowboys, however, are one team that have no trouble putting up points, actually having more points than everyone else in this league, besides the Colts, and being one of the 2 teams with the Colts to put up more than 200 points thus far this season. The Broncos defense, really great, but then you see them let up 30-plus points at home against the Giants, so it's hard to get a good gauge in that too. I think one thing you can take for certain in this game is no matter who the Cowboys play, they're going to put up points. They got something going. Dak Prescott himself has something going this season. And I think you're going to see a lot of points for the Chargers, no doubt. The big question is going to be, the Cowboys. You know the Cowboys team. You know who they are. They're going to put up points, and their defense isn't really going to do their fair share, and it's going to be up to Dak Prescott to continue to put up 30 to get wins. I think that's going to happen this game. The big question is what Broncos team shows up. And I think they got away with one last week. I don't think they're going to get away with them again this week. If that offense starts out slow, they're just going to get buried by the Cowboys and Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, even Javonte Williams doing a great job just about everywhere in that offense. I like the Cowboys to put up points and put in pressure in this Denver offense that I think, again, got lucky last week. I don't think they're going to put two performances like that in a row. I think the Cowboys win here. I think Bo Nix struggles a little bit more and plays more like the first three quarters in that game against the Giants. And again, I think the Cowboys put up 30 and get a win here. I'm going to go Cowboys 30, Denver 28 in a game that gets the Cowboys a little bit more realistic to being in the playoffs. I think Dak Prescott's having a great season, and will continue to do that. But at 3-3-1 right now, the Cowboys certainly aren't out of the playoff race, and a win here on the road will put them in the right track to get back in that conversation. Looking here at the heaviest favored game this week, division rivals Colts hosting Titans, who have that one fluke win on the road against Arizona that ruined a lot of people's survivor chances, myself included. Colts here, most points in the league, looking so polished. The Titans, least points in the league, looking like really struggling on offense. There's nothing much I can say about this game. I think you're going to see the identity that you saw through the first 7 weeks play out here with the Colts running the football all over this defense. I know Jeff Simmons, the All-Pro tackle for the Titans, left the game. On Sunday, it'll be a big sign to see whether he plays or not. He had a hamstring injury. Those kind of injuries tend to linger. Maybe he plays, but if he does, I can guarantee he won't be at 100%. Again, you're going to see this number one offensive line unit for the Colts and Jonathan Taylor try to run the ball all over this Titans team that, without Jeff Simmons, is going to be below average run defense. And then this passing game where Daniel Jones doesn't seem to be slowing down with all the weapons he has on offense. Really, Tyler Warren seemingly being the biggest catalyst, the rookie out of Penn State, keeping this passing offense going. I just think you see much of the same for both these two teams. Colts continue to trounce their opponents that are lesser than them. Get another win here and get closer to locking up this division as early as it is in the season here. I like the Colts to continue to put up 30 pieces. They're averaging, let me do some quick math on the calculator here. They're averaging 33 points a game. I don't see any reason they don't do that again. Colts 40, Titans 17. Aaron Rodgers and his Green Bay revenge game at home here might come up a little short as the Packers actually come in as a 3.5-point favorites on the road here against Steelers. A lot of time to prepare for this matchup and think about their loss after getting spanked by the Bengals there on Thursday night. Rodgers in his career, especially as of late, has struggled against top defensive units, and that's exactly what he's facing here with the Packers, hosting and posting the third best defensive unit in the league, one of the best pass rushers behind newly acquired Micah Parsons, going up against an immobile quarterback with Aaron Rodgers and a bottom 10 pass blocking unit for the Steelers. I think that in itself is a recipe for disaster for this team. You don't see a lot of wide receivers and the Steelers getting a lot of separation outside of maybe DK Metcalf on the occasional go route, but you're going to be a lot more nuanced against this Packers defense if you're going to want to get something by them. In terms of the run game, you see some great stuff happening with Josh Jacobs, throughout his career and throughout his tenure with Green Bay. Again, Pittsburgh, despite having a really great front seven that is lethal with their pass rush and getting after their quarterback, they actually posted below average run grade there, as you're not seeing TJ Watt have as big an effect in their run defense as you see him in the pass game. So the Packers can lean on the run, use their great defense and pass rush to slow down Aaron Rodgers in this Steelers team that struggles offensively at times, not having the best run unit that really slows down their passing game and kind of makes it a little bit one-dimensional. Get out in front with the run game for the Packers. Pin your ears back with your great pass rusher Micah Parsons against a subpar pass blocking unit for the Steelers. I think you're going to make the immobile Aaron Rodgers and the weak wide receiving core for the Steelers passing game really tough to put up points. I think the public's already hammering the Packers, and I think for good reason. I like them to win this game too. Although I do think it's going to be a low-scoring affair. I don't think you're going to see a lot from either side. I think you're going to see Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers team struggle. I think you see the Packers win this game 43. I'm going to go 16, a measly 16 points for the Steelers this game. And then finally, the Chiefs, who are rolling and looking like one of the best teams in football, not named the Indianapolis Colts, face Washington, who had a tough game against the Cowboys, who kind of played in the game script that I thought and into the identity that I thought about both these teams, and that is pretty poor defenses for each one of them, but I'm more of a believer in Dak Prescott and the consistency of that offense than I have been in Jane Daniels this season and what the Commanders' offense has been able to put up here. Chiefs looking like one of the best teams in football and just getting the ball really rolling with the return of Rashee Rice last week, who had a few touchdowns of his own. But this is a Commanders defense that just let up 44 points on the road. In a very similar spot here with the high total, they were underdogs by double-digit points here. You're looking for this Chiefs offense to continue to roll and Mahomes to keep playing MVP caliber football. I expect that to be much the same here with the Saints putting up 30-piece behind the newly revigorated Chiefs offense this year, not just because of getting guys like Rashee Rice back or anything else, but really because of the improvement in stepping up that Patrick Mahomes has done, knowing that he's got to play a more integral, focal role in this offense as you're starting to see an aging Travis Kelce, and you don't have the go-to number one wide receiver like you did when you had Tyreek Hill. In addition, this run game hasn't really been as prolific as he's used to in past seasons, and he's had to pick some of that slack up himself. And that's certainly what you've seen him do with, I think, almost 300 yards rushing this season, a couple of rushing touchdowns of his own. And again, this Chiefs offense seems to be improving each week as they start to figure it out a little bit more. This defense is still something of strong suit for the Chiefs, posting a top 8, the 8th best defense in the league right now, according to PFF's grade. The Commanders are only able to put up 22 points on the road against the Cowboys, who, as I mentioned, have a pretty poor defense of their own. I think the Chiefs, again, flex that defensive muscle, take away guys like Terry McLaurin, and I think you're going to see this Commanders offense struggles. I think teams start to figure out Jaden Daniels a little bit more, too. I like the Chiefs a lot this game. I like them to cover. I like them to blow them out and continue their winning ways. This is a Chiefs team that's looking like the best team in football, in my opinion. And they're only 4-3. They got a long ways to go to secure this division, and they got to take care of business at home. That's exactly what they're due. I think they're going to put up 33 points to the Commanders 21 and win this game handily and continue their winning ways. But that's what I got for you in Week 8. Hope everyone enjoyed. Hope it helped you make your picks, and let me know what you take in the comment section, and I will see you again in Week 9.